What if all humans suddenly disappeared from the Earth? Imagine waking up one morning like any other, but something feels strange. You step outside and realize there's no one around. No honking cars, no pedestrians, no ringing phones, no messages. The city is eerily silent, like an abandoned world. Cars are left stranded in the streets. Traffic lights continue flashing red and green, but no one stops. Towering skyscrapers stand still, like colossal monuments. On TV screens, the last broadcasts continue playing, but there's no one left to control them. And then, a terrifying realization dawns upon you. All of humanity has vanished. No traces, no warnings, no explanation. One moment, civilization was running as usual. The next, the planet is empty. If this were to happen, what would become of Earth without us? Would nature reclaim what was once taken from it? How long would humanity's greatest creations endure? And what would happen to the creatures left behind? Let's find out. The first 24 hours, a world without humans. Earth continues its journey around the sun, but now without a single human presence. In the skies, hundreds of planes continue flying, but there are no pilots left to guide them. Commercial flights that once carried passengers across the world now soar aimlessly on autopilot. But with no human adjustments, no altitude control, and no safe landings, these planes will soon run out of fuel, crashing into the ground or the oceans, leaving fiery explosions across the planet. On the highways below, everything is just as eerie. Trucks and cars keep moving for a short time, their drivers gone in an instant. Without anyone at the wheel, vehicles crash into each other, overturn, or simply roll to a stop as they run out of fuel. Trains continue gliding along tracks, but soon, without an energy supply, they too will halt indefinitely. For now, the cities remain illuminated. Billboards continue flashing their advertisements, storefronts remain open, but no one is left to enter. Electricity still flows, thanks to automated power plants, but this stability won't last long. The control centers, once monitored by engineers to regulate power distribution, are now deserted. Within just 24 hours, Earth is already a different place, a world without humans, but still running on the momentum we left behind. After a few days, the first signs of collapse. Without human intervention, the systems we built begin to break down. Nuclear power plants, once meticulously managed by trained professionals, start shutting down automatically due to safety mechanisms. In the first few days, reactors continue to cool themselves using emergency backup systems. But as fuel reserves deplete, some plants could face catastrophic failures, releasing radiation into the air and water. The electrical grid weakens and starts to fail. In areas powered by solar and wind energy, electricity may last a little longer. But without maintenance, wind turbines will eventually seize up and solar panels will gather dust, reducing efficiency until they fail completely. In major cities, skyscrapers go dark as power grids collapse. Elevators get stuck between floors, air conditioning ceases, and the interiors of buildings become eerily silent and lifeless. Meanwhile, at hydroelectric dams, water continues to flow, generating power for much longer than other sources. But without anyone to regulate the pressure, these structures will eventually fail. Dams could burst, unleashing catastrophic floods that wash away everything in their path. As streets remain eerily empty, nature begins to reclaim its lost territory. Flocks of pigeons, once dependent on human scraps, now search the cities for food that no longer exists. Rats, cockroaches, and other pests thrive, no longer kept in check by human intervention. Farm animals like cattle, sheep, and horses roam freely, struggling to survive without their caretakers. Dogs, abandoned in homes, begin to form wild packs, competing with wolves and foxes for dominance. Earth is already changing, adapting to the absence of its former rulers. 1 week later, 7 days have passed since humanity vanished. Supermarkets and warehouses, once stocked with food, start to rot. Meat, vegetables, and dairy products spoil without refrigeration. Canned goods and frozen foods may last for months or years, but eventually, even they will decay. Meanwhile, domesticated animals face a brutal reality. Cats might survive thanks to their hunting instincts, but many dog breeds, especially those that have become too dependent on humans, would struggle. Some animals would starve, while others would flee into the wild or form feral packs. Meanwhile, rats and cockroaches would multiply rapidly, taking advantage of leftover food sources. Parasites such as mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks would experience a population boom, no longer kept in check by human activity. In the skies, there would be no more airplanes, only migrating birds soaring freely, no longer disturbed by city lights or towering buildings. Out in the oceans, unmanned ships would drift aimlessly. Some would run aground on shores, while others would slowly sink to the ocean floor. Lighthouses would continue to shine for a few more weeks or months until their power sources were completely depleted. The entire planet is gradually adjusting to the absence of humans. Earth has existed for billions of years without humans, and now it is returning to that state. In the first days, the systems humans built still function on momentum. But soon, like a ship without a captain, everything begins to fall apart. 1 year after humanity's disappearance, no more vehicles, no more voices, no more dazzling lights at night. Earth has officially entered a new era. Nature begins reclaiming what was once taken from it. Highways that were once packed with cars are now eerily silent. But they do not remain barren for long. Cracks begin to appear, and grass and weeds push through the asphalt, taking root in the spaces once dominated by machines. Within just 1 year, major city streets are covered in a thin but resilient green blanket. Skyscrapers are no longer lifeless structures. They have become new ecosystems. Pigeons, owls, bats, and even monkeys in tropical regions start making abandoned buildings their new homes. Vines wrap around broken windows, cling to walls and steel beams, pulling the structures closer to nature. In the plains and forests, wildlife expands its territory. Animals that were once pushed away from human settlements return to reclaim their lost land. Without humans, wolf packs roam near once thriving cities where they were once hunted. Deer, elk, and wild boars walk freely on roads that were once filled with traffic. Bears, foxes, and tigers all gradually expand into areas they could previously only visit under the cover of night. From the countryside to the heart of the city, nature is regaining control. 3 to 5 years later, the collapse of human structures. Without human hands to maintain them, even the grandest structures begin to decay. The steel bridges that once connected cities now begin to rust. At first, they remain standing, but after years of exposure to rain and wind, their joints corrode and their structures weaken. Then, one day, without an earthquake or explosion, they collapse into the very rivers they once spanned. In the cities, some buildings still stand, but they are no longer the same. Rainwater and moisture seep into walls, causing gradual decay from the inside. Windows shatter, balconies collapse, and interiors are overrun by mold and small creatures. At hydroelectric dams, a silent disaster unfolds. At first, the reservoirs continue to hold water, but with no one to monitor them, water levels rise unchecked, creating immense pressure. Eventually, the dam walls crack and give way, releasing devastating floods that swallow entire towns and villages downstream. Meanwhile, plants continue their conquest. Sidewalks, plazas, and paved roads are overtaken by tree roots. Trees sprout from the cracks in the asphalt, turning once modern cities into urban jungles. From a bird's-eye view, New York, Paris, Tokyo, Beijing now look like vast forests. These cities are no longer the domain of humans. They belong to nature once more. 10 to 20 years later, the last signs of civilization fade. 2 decades have passed. By now, even the strongest remnants of human civilization begin to deteriorate. Cars abandoned on the streets have completely rusted, their engines corroded, and their tires disintegrated. Airplanes, ships, and all the machines that once carried humans across the globe are now nothing more than piles of useless metal. In the wilderness, wildlife thrives like never before. Species that were once nearly extinct due to human hunting, rhinos, elephants, tigers, leopards, now have a chance to recover. Whales roam freely across the oceans, no longer hunted. The Amazon rainforest is no longer being deforested, and African jungles are free from the gunshots of poachers, the fate of domesticated dogs. Small, fragile dog breeds that rely on humans for survival will not be able to survive. Larger breeds, such as wolf hybrids or feral dogs, will gradually evolve to live in the wild. Hunting dog packs will form, directly competing with predators like wolves and hyenas. But it's not just animals that adapt. The entire planet is changing. With a significant reduction in CO2, Earth's climate begins to return to a more natural state. Dust storms in arid cities subside, glaciers slowly recover, and global temperatures stabilize. After 20 years, if someone were to return to Earth, they would no longer recognize the planet. 100 years later, the world is now completely different from when humans once existed. The great metropolises that once symbolized civilization, New York, Paris, Tokyo, are now overrun by the wild. From above, roads that were once smooth and paved are now rivers of vegetation, with tree roots breaking through the concrete, forming dense forests in the heart of the cities. The skyscrapers still stand, but they no longer belong to humans. Their rooftops have become bird nests, bat colonies, and overgrown with wild plants. Shorter buildings are covered in thick vines, while traffic lights and signs have been battered by wind and rain, slowly crumbling away. The subway system, once a marvel of human engineering, is now flooded with groundwater. With no pumps operating, water seeps into the tunnels, causing many areas to collapse. Abandoned underground stations become dark caves, home to bats and rodents. Meanwhile, Earth's atmosphere undergoes a drastic transformation. With no cars, factories, or airplanes emitting millions of tons of CO2 each year, the climate gradually returns to equilibrium. Temperatures stabilize, polar ice caps begin to expand again, and heavily polluted areas become pristine once more. Earth no longer has humans, but it is healing. Earth no longer has humans, but it is healing. 500 years later, half a millennium has passed. The strongest human-made structures begin to collapse. The Golden Gate Bridge, the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building, all are gone. Metal has rusted away, concrete has crumbled, and glass has shattered. What were once icons of human innovation and power are now nothing more than piles of ruins. The cities are now buried beneath layers of earth, vegetation, and time. The Amazon rainforest has expanded, swallowing up former human settlements built on its land. Deserts like the Sahara and Gobi continue to spread, burying cities beneath hot sand. In places that once held artificial lakes, the reservoirs have collapsed, allowing water to flow freely, forming new rivers and wetlands. Only a few structures remain standing. The Great Pyramids of Giza, the Great Wall of China, the temples of Angkor Wat. These monolithic stone structures may endure for thousands of years, but there will be no one left to tell their stories. In the depths of the ocean, nuclear submarines have sunk to the seabed, while aircraft have eroded under relentless waves. Some old space stations still orbit Earth, but over time, they plunge into the atmosphere, burning up, leaving no trace. What was once a flourishing human civilization is now reduced to mere fragments, scattered and swept away by nature. 1. 1,000 years later, Earth is now completely wild. If an alien civilization were to visit Earth at this point, they might find no evidence of human existence. Rainforests have overtaken entire continents. New rivers have formed, and the oceans have erased old coastlines. Oshi pai. Whales, sharks, and sea turtles roam freely, untouched by human interference. Herds of elephants, wolves, tigers, and bears now thrive in unrestricted territories. The landscape has shifted, the terrain has transformed. Cities have been entirely buried beneath layers of soil and rock, with only a few scattered stone ruins hinting at a forgotten past. Earth has returned to a time before humanity, a natural, green, and untamed world. If someone were to return at this point, they would see an alien planet, unrecognizable from the one their ancestors built. 10,000 years later, a world erased. Time marches on, but there is no one left to measure it. Earth still orbits the sun, the seasons still change, but no trace of humanity remains. 10 millennia have passed. The last remaining human structures have crumbled into dust. The world's greatest cities, New York, London, Beijing, have been erased by nature. Skyscrapers have collapsed, metal structures have rusted into nothingness, and concrete has been cracked apart by rain and tree roots. Everything that once stood tall has turned to rubble, buried under meters of earth and sediment. In places where nuclear power plants once stood, if radiation leaks occurred after humanity's disappearance, the last remnants of radioactive materials have now decayed. There is no longer any threat to life, and these areas have become wild grasslands or dense, untouched forests. The animals once affected by radiation have either adapted or gone extinct, making way for new, evolving species. At this point, Earth may enter a new ice age or continue shifting its climate naturally. If glacial cycles persist, thick ice sheets will begin covering the polar regions, extending into areas that were once bustling cities. Human metropolises will be buried beneath kilometers of ice, as if they never existed. In another scenario, if global temperatures continue to rise, sea levels will increase, submerging all coastal structures. Bridges that once connected continents will now be nothing more than coral-covered ruins deep beneath the ocean, providing new habitats for marine life. But whether Earth enters an ice age or continues evolving in another direction, one thing is certain: the age of humanity is truly over. 1,000,000 years later, everything that once belonged to humans has almost completely vanished. Mountains, rivers, and even coastlines have shifted over time. If a new civilization were to arise in the distant future, they would struggle to find any clear evidence of our existence. Even the most durable human structures have been erased. The Great Pyramid of Giza might still stand, but severely eroded by wind and sand. The Moai statues of Easter Island may remain upright but covered under new geological layers. The Great Wall of China, once stretching thousands of kilometers, now reduced to scattered remnants buried in remote mountains. On the moon, if an alien probe ever landed, it might still find the last traces of humanity, remnants of the Apollo missions, though likely buried under layers of lunar dust. Even though humans have disappeared, life on Earth continues, constantly changing and adapting. After 1,000,000 years, the animals we know today have evolved beyond recognition. Those that once roamed the planet alongside humans have transformed into entirely new forms. Predatory species may grow larger, taking advantage of the ecological space left behind by humans. Birds could evolve into dominant land creatures, much like the dinosaurs of ancient times. Marine life may take on new shapes, replacing species once threatened by human activities. Earth does not care about humanity's disappearance. Life persists, on its own terms. 1,000,000 years from now, if an alien civilization visits Earth, if an alien civilization were to arrive 1,000,000 years in the future, what would they see? A lush planet, covered in forests and oceans. Vast mountains, deserts, and endless grasslands stretching to the horizon. Herds of wild animals roaming freely across the continents. But they would not find humans. They might search for signs of a past civilization. But aside from a few buried stone structures, there would be nothing left to prove we ever existed. What if, after millions of years, a new civilization, perhaps the descendants of surviving animals, emerged? Would they discover the remnants of our world? Or would humanity be forgotten forever? The fate of Earth. Over millions and billions of years, time waits for no one, and if humans are gone, Earth will continue its journey through the vast universe. But no matter how resilient our planet may seem, it cannot escape the relentless forces of time and nature. Millions, or even billions of years from now, what will remain of Earth? If someone returned to Earth after 50 million years, they would find an entirely unfamiliar world. The continents we once knew would no longer be in their original positions. Continental drift Earth is constantly in motion. Tectonic plates shift slowly, but over tens of millions of years, they can completely reshape the planet's surface. Once great cities, New York, London, Tokyo, are now buried kilometers beneath layers of sedimentary rock, crushed by geological pressure. New mountains, new oceans. What was once the ocean floor may now be towering mountains. Ranges like the Himalayas could erode, while new mountains form from colliding tectonic plates. Oceans may expand or shrink, ocean currents may shift, and entirely new ecosystems will emerge. If an alien civilization arrives on Earth. Suppose an intelligent alien civilization were to visit Earth at this time. What would they see? They might find a green planet full of life, but no clear traces of humanity. The greatest human structures would have been crushed beneath the ground, fossilized, or vanished entirely. Only with advanced technology might they detect faint remnants, a layer of sediment containing traces of pollution or rare elements once used by humans. Perhaps they would wonder, was there ever a civilization here? And if so, where did they go? 500 million years later, the sun begins to heat up. 500 million years have passed. Even the solar system itself is no longer the same. The sun is aging, emitting more heat than ever before. Drastic climate changes. Global temperatures have risen to extreme levels. Regions that were once mild and habitable are now barren deserts. Great rivers, like the Amazon and Mississippi, dried up long ago. Seawater evaporates at an accelerated rate, causing many oceans to shrink. Life evolves into an entirely different state. If life still exists on Earth at this point, it will no longer resemble anything we once knew. Current animal species have either gone extinct or evolved into new forms adapted to extreme heat. Gigantic creatures may dominate the planet, or entirely new forms of life may emerge, unlike anything we have ever seen. If oceans still exist, marine creatures will have adapted to warmer, saltier waters. If a human from the past could see Earth now, they would not recognize the planet they once called home. 5 billion years later, the sun becomes a red giant. The inevitable happens. At last, the unavoidable takes place. After 5 billion years, the sun has exhausted its fuel. It expands dramatically, transforming into a red giant star. At this stage, the sun grows hundreds of times its current size. Its surface temperature decreases, but its intense heat burns everything on Earth. Oceans evaporate, the atmosphere is blown away. Before being engulfed, Earth turns into a true hellscape. Oceans completely evaporate, vanishing into space. The atmosphere is stripped away, leaving a dry, cracked planet, much like Venus today. Every last trace of humanity, even fossils buried deep underground, is burned to nothing. If humanity still exists somewhere else in the universe. If, by some means, humanity has survived, perhaps on another planet or in a distant galaxy, they will witness this event from afar. They will see their homeworld consumed in flames, disappearing forever in the grand evolution of the cosmos. Perhaps they will record this moment in history as a way to remember Earth, the cradle of human civilization. If humans disappear, Earth will continue, but in a different way. This planet was once home to billions of people, but after our disappearance, Earth does not stop. It continues to exist, continues to change, but in an entirely different direction. Roads that were once filled with vehicles become rivers of vegetation. Skyscrapers that once symbolized human strength are now rusted skeletons, consumed by nature. Elephants, tigers, bears, creatures once on the brink of extinction, now roam freely across lands they once lost. Without anyone to control it, the world humans built over thousands of years is swiftly reclaimed by nature. Cities vanish, great structures collapse, everything is buried beneath layers of earth and stone. After millions of years, there is no one left to tell our story. But the greatest question remains: is this truly the end of humanity? We once rose from the wilderness, reaching for the stars beyond. So what if humans never truly disappeared, but instead found a way to continue surviving elsewhere? If we abandoned Earth before it was consumed by the sun, could we become a true species of the cosmos, enduring for billions of years to come? Would you like to explore that scenario? Leave a comment and follow for the next chapters.